Okay, today we're going to be talking about the proper ways to combine sentences. And improper sentence combining is probably the most common error that I see from college students. So these are the ways in which we can correctly put together sentences, to correctly put together the pieces of sentences. To begin with, then, we'll need to kind of talk about what are those pieces of sentences, what are the parts. And so I need to put together a couple of definitions then. The first one is the word compound, and the word compound means two or more. If you think about a chemical compound, for example, it's a compound of several chemicals that have been put together. A phrase is any group of words that goes together. It's a group of words that goes together, but that does not contain a subject and verb. So that's an important kind of distinction there. So a phrase does not contain a subject or a verb. And the reason why I want to kind of point that out is that I'm making a contrast between a phrase and a clause, which is a group of words that does contain at least one subject and one verb. So the difference between a phrase and a clause is that a phrase doesn't contain a subject and verb, while a clause does. There are two main there's a couple of things we need to talk about with clauses then. The first thing that we need to talk about is the types of clauses, and the first one I want to talk about is an independent clause. And the word independent, what it means here with a clause is the same meaning that you would have if you were speaking of yourself. It means that you can kind of take care of yourself, right, if you're independent. And with a clause, then, it means that it is able to stand on its own. So an independent clause is any clause that could be a complete sentence all by itself. A compound sentence, then, is a combination of a couple of independent clauses. When we talk about compound sentences are in contrast to what we would call a simple sentence. And a simple sentence, so kind of, I should have probably put before this, a simple sentence is one independent clause. And a compound sentence is two independent clauses. So for example, a simple sentence, an example of that would be something like, something really simple, Bob bought milk. And a compound sentence would be a combination of a couple of these independent clauses. And I'll give you some examples of compound sentences here in a few minutes. So when we talk about compound sentences, then, we have several ways that we combine independent clauses. The first way is with coordinating conjunctions, and this is the most common way that we combine sentences. And the coordinating conjunctions, there's a small list, and it really does help you to try and memorize these. It's one of the few things this term that I think is important for you to memorize. Almost everything else you can look up at some point, I think, and that's fine. But the coordinating conjunctions, there's few enough of them, and by knowing them, you can kind of tell what other things are doing. So the way to remember these, the words are for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. The way that I've stolen this from other people, and lots of people have used this. But one of the ways to kind of remember this is to use the mnemonic fanboys. And so if you take each of the first letters, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, they go together to make fanboys. And so that if you remember that fanboys, you can probably remember these 7 words. And the important thing about these is that these are the only 7 words in the English language that you can use a comma to connect 2 sentences. So if you use these words, you just have the first sentence, Bob went to the store. and then I just put a comma in, just a comma, and that's the only time I can use a comma to connect two sentences. Bob went to the store, but the store had no cheese. So presumably Bob went there for cheese. So each of those could be complete sentences. The store had no cheese and Bob went to the store. And I've combined them with that comma and the word but, the coordinating conjunction but. Here's a couple of other examples. I went to the store, comma, and I bought a loaf of bread. She donated her car, comma, so she could receive a tax break. And notice we've got, a subject and a verb, a subject and a verb. And so this whole part here could be a complete sentence. It's one independent clause. And from here on is a second independent clause. And again here, same thing. So we've got independent and independent. The next way that we can combine two sentences is by using a semicolon. And so I want to talk just for a minute about what a semicolon is. And the semicolon is this piece of punctuation. It's the one with the dot on top and then the comma on the bottom. And a semicolon ultimately has the same kind of strength. It's just as strong as a period, but it tells us that there's a close connection between the two things that are connected by it. So while a period could be a full stop, we'd go, full sentence, period, then another full sentence. A semicolon says the two sentences that are on either side of the semicolon are connected in some way. And a semicolon can be used then to connect two independent clauses. One kind of key thing to keep in mind here is that if you look at writing, the semicolon by itself is used pretty infrequently. And so I want to kind of warn you against using the semicolon all over the place, because if there's lots and lots of semicolons on a page, it tends to look not like the person really knows what they're doing, but that they just figured out what the semicolon does. So kind of watch out for that. Okay. The next way that we can combine two independent clauses is by using what we call conjunctive adverbs. And conjunctive adverbs are words like however, nevertheless, therefore. And these words, they seem a lot like the coordinating conjunctions, the for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. But they are a slightly different kind of word, and they are punctuated differently. They combine two independent clauses, but instead of using just a comma, now we're going to need to use a semicolon and then a comma. And so the example here, if you look at this one down here at the bottom of the screen, John went to the store, semicolon, however, comma, the store was out of milk. So we've got a full sentence, John went, and we have another full sentence, the store was. And there's that same example again. So John went to the store, semicolon, however, comma, the store was out of milk. Okay, so just a kind of a brief review of the punctuation on this part. So a comma before coordinating conjunctions that connect two clauses. So an example of that. Scooby likes Scooby snacks. But Shaggy ate them all. A semicolon before and a comma after coordinating conjunctions. So if I took that same sentence, so Scooby likes Scooby snacks, I'll just put the ditto marks so I don't have to rewrite it again. So snacks, semicolon, however, comma, Shaggy. and the rest would be the same. If I don't have anything between the two, so if I just have Scooby likes Scooby snacks, semicolon, and then Shaggy. Okay, I can do that. I can use a semicolon to connect those two sentences. Again, keep in mind that a sentence is only compound if it has a subject and a verb in each clause. So as you're starting to work through some of the exercises, particularly in 9b, there are several of those where we have actually a simple sentence with one subject and two verbs. So just because we have the word "and" there, it doesn't mean that we're connecting two sentences. Let me give you an example of that. So something like Scooby bought a van and painted it. So in this case, I've got the word "and" there, but I really don't have two clauses. I only have one. I have Scooby bought and painted, two verbs for one subject.